I, 25M, was suspicious, snooped, and left my girlfriend, 22F. What do I do now? I, 25M, was with my girlfriend, 22F, from June until several weeks ago. She was super awesome, but also, in my view, super shady. I blindsided her pretty hard by leaving her. Sorry in advance for the novel, but I think the details are important. We met on Tinder and hit it off immediately as we shared lots of common interests, maybe more than anyone else I've ever met. We actually matched while she was visiting a friend in the city where I live, but she was living in a college town about 100 miles away. The good first 2 weeks of knowing each other was from Tinder messages and texts only. Finally went and met up with her in real life, and she was far more awesome than I expected. Anyways, I was taking online summer classes at my university and she was unemployed due to COVID, so even though she technically lived 100 plus miles away, she basically lived with me for most of the summer, lying to her parents about where she was. Fast forward to the autumn semester, and we go from living with each other for 2 to 3 weeks straight per month to seeing each other for 1 to 3 days a couple of times per month. It was around this time a family friend of hers, basically her godmother, died. Though she faced it really bravely at first, it came to consume her and she quickly became depressed, anxious, and her eating disorder got worse. A week or so after the funeral, I didn't go and she was totally fine with that. I came to visit her and she was acting funny. We talked and she expressed how she'd been feeling very depressed given the death, and that she missed me often, but that was it. I took her word for it and tried to do my best to be there for her and suspected nothing. The next day, however, we were doing homework together and were talking about a painting she was studying for class. I'm a musician and she was an art student, so it was fun to discuss art/music. Soon after, she left to go to work, and while she was gone I noticed her laptop was open. I thought it might be fun to look at the pieces she was studying for class and talk to her about them when she got home. Instead, I noticed her messenger app, the one for sending iMessages on your computer, sitting next to her notes. Front and center were texts to her friend about how she wished I wasn't there, how I wish he would just teleport away, and her friend asking her how's the breakup going, with my girlfriend replying not good. I was appalled. I knew coming to visit her that she hadn't been doing great, but even being there in person I had no inkling that she wanted to break up. She totally hid that from me. I did the wrong thing, and with her computer open, I kept snooping. She'd expressed to the same friend as above once that she didn't love me the same way as she loved her ex. After coming with me to meet my parents, she excitedly texted her friend about how wealthy my parents are. I present fairly middle class myself, as that's how I grew up, but my parents do well for themselves now. I found texts to a guy friend several months into our relationship where my girlfriend described me as the boy I'm fucking and my friend. She sent pictures of herself to her guy friend that I took of her while omitting to send a single picture of me and her together. Meanwhile, this guy friend, which I only heard about once or twice, would occasionally send her texts about how horny he was or about how many times he jacked off that day. In her texts, she would always brush him off, but it made me feel so gross that my girlfriend was even entertaining this guy with conversations about those things when I knew nothing about him from her end. She eventually got back from work and I decided the best thing for both of us was to not bring up the snooping I'd done. I knew it was incredibly wrong to spy, but I felt I'd learned important things that would determine my moves forward. Throughout that night continued to act as normal as she had been when I arrived. The next morning I packed up early and told her I felt she didn't want me around, as I had found out from the texts to her friend, but she vehemently denied it. We eventually agreed to break up, and my decision to leave her and leave town was devastating to her. Almost immediately after I'd gotten home she started texting me again. After about a week or so of awkward back and forth we decided to give it another go. She told me that our relationship was the only healthy one she'd ever been in and that she loved me earnestly. She was busy with school and work. We didn't visit each other for another month, but when we finally saw each other again it truly felt like like we were working towards the level of trust and intimacy we used to have. Trouble began again for me when she would talk in her sleep. Several times while we were sleeping she would roll over and call me by another guy's name, or be talking to other guys by name in her dreams. I chalked it up to the randomness of the subconscious and ignored it. We didn't see each other again until just before Christmas when she came to visit for my birthday. Due to COVID, there wasn't much to do besides hanging out at home, but it was alright. Trouble struck again on the final day she was visiting, which happened to be my birthday. I had been woken up the night before by her rolling over, putting her arm around me, and saying I love you, insert another guy's name here /, so I started the day pretty sad/mad. She also refused to wake up and slept until nearly 1 p.m. She told me she was going to bake me a cake the day before but decided not to, had nothing planned, and I ended up buying us a nice lunch with my own money. To top it all off, she decided she was not going to spend the night as she'd planned 3 to 4 weeks earlier, but instead left her day early. I ended up spending most of my birthday with her sitting on the couch and the entire evening alone as she left early. I'm not / a needy person when it comes to birthdays / presents / surprises, but the extremely low level of effort combined with being called another guy's name in bed the night before left me sad, mad, and more suspicious than ever. I went through Christmas time feeling pretty dejected about the whole relationship, but it didn't cost me much more than an hour a day of texting / phone calls, so I just went with it. The last straw for me was her not texting me all evening one Friday in early January. Finally got a tipsy text from her late that night that she'd been out getting coffee and drinks with one of her guy friends she hadn't seen in months. Though she worked 50 to 60 hours per week and had only seen me 3 times in the past 15 weeks, she had the afternoon and evening off and decided not to spend it with me. I would never ask so to distance themselves from seeing their friends. That's abusive. But when she said I wish I could have been grabbing a drink with you when there seemed no intention of that, I snapped. It was the disingenuous move that broke the camel's back for me. The next day I told her about my reservations about our relationship and how I felt like she stopped caring and wasn't being completely honest about her lingering emotions for her exes. I asked her about the guy she called me in her sleep the night before my birthday and she told me she had no idea who he was. 5 minutes looking at social media and Venmo, yeah I know, it was creepy, and I knew she was flat out lying. He was her ex/FWB a month or 2 before we met. I knew at that point I couldn't go on anymore. I'd never expect a girlfriend of mine to give me the rundown on their entire past, but don't lie to me. I took her completely by surprise that I decided to leave for good and she ended up getting pretty angry at me for breaking up. I'm several weeks single at this point and don't feel great, but I'm doing alright. Sucks cause this girl was incredibly perfect for me in a number of ways that are very important to me. On the other hand, a great deal of the problems I had with the relationship originated from my suspicion of her and snooping through social media, Venmo, and on her computer once several months ago. In the end, I think I did the right thing for myself, but confronting the fact that my doubts seemed to be rooted in my own insecurity and inability to trust has had me wondering how to grow and move forward. Your doubts were not rooted in insecurity and an inability to trust. Your doubts were caused by your intuition screaming at you that there was something wrong. Emo, all you need to do to grow and move forwards, is to spend some time healing before you meet anyone else. Just so you don't end up actually doubting someone actually decent, which that girl most definitely isn't. The girl wasn't perfect for you. The girl you thought she was perfect for you. Big difference there. Good on you for leaving, man. You should have stuck with it the first time, but I know how it goes. You've made the right call for yourself here. Stick to your guns and look forward. There's plenty of sweethearts out there to make you forget about this one. You were right to leave. Feel she was just using you. That's the vibes I got. Like she was just using him as her security blanket. She also sounds very manipulative and calculating the way she's talking to him behind his back versus what she tells him to her face. If she can't be honest with herself, she'll never be honest with you, man. You should have stayed broken up the first time. Do what was in your head to take her back after you learn for the first time she didn't want you around. And you are surprised that she called another guy name on her sleeping. If you were my son, I punish you. You should have followed through with the first break. Don't ever beg for love. You never chased a woman, or a train, and be attentive to actions. No word, anyone can tell you I love you. Hope you do better next time. Saludos. Yeah, when he said that, it made me bang my head against the fucking table. Like, dude, you saw she didn't respect you. Her kindness was a fucking mask and her intentions were money. Yeesh. My M29 colleague, F35ish, tried to recruit me and my GF, F30, to a cult. How do I deal with this on Monday morning? So basically, my colleague invited me to wellness course at the weekend. I thought it would be a nice chance to get to know her outside of work. Course was online. I'm very new to the job, and given that it's all remote work, it's been hard to get to know people. Absolutely no interest in her romantically. I actually had my GF take part in the course as well. Anyway, the master of the course immediately started using manipulative tactics on all the attendees. It has all the signs of being a cult. I've no doubt about it. I walked out after 45 minutes, but my GF stayed on the chat. My GF was keen to see if she could learn anything on mindfulness, and given we paid a lot for the workshop, she wanted to get her money worth. I listened in, and it was heartbreaking to hear them insult and humiliate my GF, while giving her just enough praise to keep her interested. Anytime she tried to leave, they would go on a 10 minutes talk about how she wasn't living a full life, but she could if she took part in their weekly classes. We didn't bite. Don't worry. I have to chat with my colleague tomorrow. How should I approach this? She'll want to know why I didn't stick out the whole session and if I have any feedback. Should I be truthful and say what I think? Should I make up an excuse so we avoid any conflict? Should I tell her she's in a cult? Any advice welcome. Because this is a colleague, I just say sorry, it wasn't for me. If they push, do your best to end the conversation. Just say you're not interested in it and move on. I would just be honest and say it wasn't for you. If you're afraid that she doesn't know it's a cult, then you can make it clear that you got cult vibes from it. But I'd just minimize contact with this coworker in the future. It's okay to say honestly, I didn't feel completely comfortable with it. And if she wants to know more, that's an opening to talk about the things that happened, manipulation, insulting the GF, that made you feel uncomfortable. I wouldn't mention the C word unless she starts also saying that she felt uncomfortable with it. You definitely shouldn't call her a cunt. That would get you fired. Bigger concern for me would be making sure GF understands the kinds of manipulative tactics used by organizations like this. Sit her down with some informative resources and explain to her that you noticed this master using these tactics. Be specific. If she's never been exposed to cults before, if she feels like her life is missing something, who doesn't nowadays? It can be really easy to fall into these types of traps. You noticed it very early and knew exactly how to respond. Fuck whatever your coworker has going in. There's nothing you need to do except just not attend any more sessions or give her weird cult any more of your money, but make sure your GF is aware. I, 20M, got made a dermatologist appointment and eye doctor appointment by my parents. Neither of which were needed or my idea. Now they want me to pay for what insurance didn't cover. The title, and here is a little more information. My parents are well off. Combined they probably make $200,000 a year. They've paid for all of my medical costs in the past except for when I was fed up with my acne and wanted to get proper acne medication, which we discussed beforehand. Really, they just told me they weren't going to pay a dime and it was all on me since this wasn't health related, just personal preference. I was just fine with that and it's about what I expected. 1 month ago my biological dad, who I live with, and my adoptive mother of 8 years, as well, had skin cancer removed. It was stage 2 and caused by sunburn. Of course I am predisposed due to my racial origins of extremely fair skin. So my parents told me and coerced me into making the appointment. And after I went there telling me to pay them for it. I have an eye exam for glasses on Monday and I have a sinking feeling that after telling me to make the appointment, we made the glasses discovery need over dinner a couple nights before. that they'll make me pay for the glasses and the appointment. I don't need glasses. I've survived perfectly fine for several months since I first noticed a faltering in my vision. My adoptive mother, an accountant, who handles most of the family finances now, states today that since I dropped out of college, it made me suicidal and I have loads of aspirations that I work day in and out on. I chose to be an independent adult. Ever since I did, they treat me like a failure and hold my decision over my head and don't believe that it made me suicidal. My dad has a PhD in chemical engineering and mom and ma CC and certified CPA. Both of her other kids either dropped out or did nothing with their degree. I think they were hoping that I would do the same as them instead of ending up like my half-siblings. I am my dad's only child as well. I've been split on wondering if I'm actually spoiled, gaslighting, manipulated, or actually in the right when I say I think they're just being manipulative and abusive with how they're holding my financials hostage. What I mean by that is I have about $3,000 personally saved to try and move out. $40,000 in retirement savings, that really could go in my pocket instead, from parents and relatives, and probably about $5,000 in apartment supplies in storage. If I move out from my parents on a bad note, they'll be able to strip me of everything monetary, and every ounce of monetary stability head start that I may have ahead of me. I would love to just leave them and stake my own financial independence, but it feels idiotic to do so with a chance at so much financial stability. What should I do? I probably missed details and feel free to ask for them.